everyone, it's Dion with Modern Day Wonder, and today I'm going to talk about my February TBR. So February is Valentine's month, and I like to read more romantic or love story type books in February. And I have got a list of 7 books that I'm going to try to read this February that fall into that category. The first book I've picked is Lovely War by Julie Berry. I've heard amazing things about this book, and I really wanted to read it last year, but it looked a little thick, so I kind of put it off. But this is a multi-leveled love story. It follows 2 separate love stories during World War I. Hazel and James, and Aubrey and Colette. And we hear these love stories 30 years after they've happened during World War II, told through Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love, as she is telling stories to her husband Hephaestus and to her lover Ares. It's a contemplation really on how love and war can be so interconnected. It's kind of, I've been told it's Aphrodite trying to come to terms with that, how love and war can go hand in hand. I love Greek mythology. I'm a big fan of the webcomic Lore Olympus. Amazing. So I really like to pick up things that have something to do with mythology, and I really think I'm going to enjoy this one. The second book on my list is Instant Karma by Marissa Meyer. I've read her series, The Lunar Chronicles, and I really enjoyed that one. So when I saw that this one was coming out, I figured I'd pick it up. It's the story of Prudence, who is given the ability to give instant karma to anyone. So she goes about like punishing people, and she has the perfect person in mind to give instant karma to, Quint, who is her lab partner who she cannot stand. But it seems that every time that she inflicts this instant karma on him, it doesn't go the way that she planned it to go. It sounds like it's going to be an enemies to lovers story, which is one of my absolute favorites. The third book on my list is Dangerous Allegiance by Jenicky Cohen. This is a Jane Austen-esque book about Lady Victoria Ashton, or Vicky, who has come of marriageable age and she needs to find a husband. There are several love interests that she runs into. One is a family friend who she seems may have been interested in at one time but left. There is a rich, wealthy gentleman, and then another guy who was rather boring. She has to find someone to marry before her family is basically left destitute. She is a fan of Jane Austen novels, and it's set like contemporary, so it's set in the early 1800s time period, and she references a lot of Jane Austen's novels, specifically Elizabeth Bennet from Pride and Prejudice. So she's going through certain situations, she'll be like, what would Elizabeth do, and things like that. I was originally going to buddy read this with a friend of mine, and I tried to start it, but just didn't get through it. So I figured Valentine's Day would be a perfect time to read it because it was really interesting. So the fourth book on my list, the last book I have a physical copy of with me, is The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Ahdieh. This is the second book in her duology that's based on the 1001 Nights. It's about Shahrazad and Khalid. I can't really say too terribly much about it because it is the second book in her duology and I don't want to give it away to those who haven't read it. But talking about the first book in the duology, which was The Wrath and the Dawn, it is about Khalid, who is the caliph of his area, and it seems that every woman he marries is destined to die at dawn. He marries Shahrazad, she goes in to revenge her best friend, and is the first woman to ever survive the night. So this is the second book in that series. This is the only book by Renee Ahdieh I have not read yet. I've read everything else she's done and I've absolutely loved it. She is one of my instant purchase authors. I've loved everything she's written, and I'm super excited for the next book in the Beautiful series. But before I get my hands on that, I'm gonna read this one. The fifth book on my list is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This book hasn't come out yet. It comes out in February, and those of you who are big fans of the ACOTAR series, this is the fourth book in the installment, or I guess you could say the fifth book, depending on if you count the novella as 3.5 or 4. So it's the next book in the series. It is going to be adult instead of young adult, and it follows Nesta and Cassian. I'm really excited to see Nesta's character more developed. I know there's several people who aren't a big fan of her, but I'm really excited to see her side of things. And the last book on my list I've pre-ordered and will be here later this week is Cast in Firelight by Dana Swift. This is a new novel that's come out, and the cover art is done by Charlie Bowater, and I absolutely love every book that they have illustrated. But this one sounds really exciting. It's the first book in a duology about two royal heirs who have been betrothed to one another. However, their allegiances lie elsewhere, and they have to figure out what they're going to do. It sounds really interesting. I've heard the tagline, "The Princess Will Save You," in this one tied to this book a lot, which sounds like a lot of fun. And it was recommended for people who liked books by Sabaa Tahir, Renee Ahdieh, and Hafsa Faizal, which I have loved in Ember in the Ashes series. I'm currently re-listening to We Hunt the Flame, and the second book is coming out next week, which I'm super excited about. And like I said earlier, all of Renee Ahdieh's books except for The Rose and the Dagger, which is on this list as well. So these are the 7 books that I'm going to be reading in February. Have you read any of these books? Or do you have any other romantic style books that you like to read in February? If so, leave them in the comments.